we again. Sit back, relax, we got the brain of band. No need to stress in the house, it's Van Bellen. The game is windsurfing, you can't yell them or tell them. We get the news, the views, the win biz. The brand's gear tips plus the world's best quiz. The Cubs, PWA. We're professionals without the pay. There's nothing in pole dancing that we won't chat. From tandem boards to a windsurfing cat. It's your one-stop shop for a laugh and listen. Tune in each week or you'll be doing the missing.
Yo, 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 welcome back to the Windsurfing podcast. You'll have to tell me how the mic is this week. I've got a new mic, so you have to give me let me know how it is. Obviously, there is someone missing this week. Mr. Paul Van Bellen is not here, but we do have a special guest, and we are going to be talking all things GPS. Now, I get lots of questions from you guys about GPS watches, which one to buy. I mean, that's probably my most asked question. Obviously, I'm involved with the Water Speed app. We've been doing a lot of stuff with that. There's a lot of questions on the Water Speed app. Obviously, GPS speed surfing. We've got Luderitz happening at the moment, which is a timed event, but they've obviously got their GPSs. But windsurfing is massively into GPSs. It is almost... well, it's formed a whole new thing on its own, and it has driven forward a lot of what people base their sessions on these days. It's kind of like their own little partner to be windsurfing with. So it has a massive effect, but they're not all created equally, which is really eye-opening when you find out the details. And I definitely haven't got all this knowledge, as I said, but I do know a guy, and he is coming on today, who is known as the GPS guy. I called him a nerd the other day, and he looked at me like, hang on a minute. And then I looked up the word nerd, and it's like the perfect description of this fella. He's enthusiastic. He knows his stuff, and it is something very niche, windsurfing GPS. So who is it? It is, of course, Mr. Mike George.
Hey, dude.
How are you going? All good?
I'm all good, yeah. Nice sunny day here in Weymouth.
Well, that is a lovely to have. We have been trying to do this podcast for, I mean, it feels like years, but it's probably, it's a fair few months. We've had a few ups and downs. You've obviously been super busy, but we have finally done it. And I hope it's not going to be the last one, because it's a very broad, huge subject, GPS.
It is indeed, yeah.
So firstly, I think what we need to explain to people at home is why... well, give us a background. Give me your background. You're obviously a windsurfer. Talk us through a bit about your windsurfing, what you've been up to, and then your sort of GPS kind of, why you kind of so into it, because you literally have got your fingers in so many different pies with the GPS world.
Yeah, so I've been windsurfing since the late 80s, maybe. So that was like a summer holiday thing. I'd just do it 1 or 2 weeks a year. And I took it up properly in about 2000, and I got into freestyle. This was like the time of Supercross and stuff. So that was really inspiring to me. So I was kind of in the days of freestyle where Spocks and stuff were new school, and now it's old school. But that
I still feel new school.
And I used to go to Prasinisi a lot, and that was a really good spot for freestyle. But the centre had this GPS, and you could take it out and you could see how fast you were going. So took out one of the Supercross boards, went down the beach, and I was kind of hooked. And I've been GPS speed surfing ever since then. That was kind of the start of this journey.
Wow. I mean, that's a probably similar timeline to a lot of people I know at the beach these days. We are getting older. How old are you? It is kind of, I mean, not that it's a bad thing, but, I feel like I'm in that kind of midsection. Whereas in other sports, we'd be probably some of the older crew. So I think it is, that we are the sort of benchmark age group at the moment. Yeah. So Supercross. So what was it about GPS that got you hooked? And then how did it lead into what you're doing now with the GPS stuff to sort of,
So I find it nice that you've got this actual measure of how you're doing. And you're competing against yourself. You might be racing your mates, but ultimately you're trying to beat your own bests. It's kind of comparable. I used to be a track athlete, 400-meter hurdles, and you just measured your performance based on the times you ran. GPS is kind of similar to that you can go in the water, you can be on your own, you can be with your mates, but you're trying to achieve something. And it's really good fun. There's lots of different things you can do with it. You can measure your jibes. You can see how fast you're going during the whole session, your top speeds. There's all sorts of things you can look at.
Yeah, and I think we are going to see more as it, goes in. We're going to be talking about that. But obviously, I've been dealing a little bit with water speed, and I was looking at their sort of jibing metrics and stuff, and you think, man, there's more to go in this sort of area of kind of comparison, because it is nice, like, and I've said this before on the podcast, I have different sessions, because sometimes when I go too into details and techie and trying to improve, I get people saying, oh, Ben, just go and have fun. I do that as well. Like, I have different sessions. I have some sessions I'm just in it just to go and have fun and relax and just get away from the world, so to speak, have my sort of almost meditation. Someone said that to me, but I said it's totally true. I am literally in a sort of trance state, like I'm like just in a meditation. And then I have other sessions where, in freestyle, I have a move to learn, or I want to do something in wave sailing. I've got certain thing that I want to improve on. And then you've got obviously free ride and free race and speed, where GPS is just such an absolute, the best tool that came out of that for measuring metrics. Because I think the main thing that I would say, and maybe you back me up on this for GPS stuff, is you don't track just your ultimate speed. It's all comparable or whatever to the session, to the gear, to the conditions. And I think this sometimes can get a bit confusing. People are like, I've done 36 and then that's there. And then they're never happy until they get conditions where they beat it. Go.
I was going to say, you can do things like see how far you've gone in a day. That's another interesting thing to do. Like earlier this summer, I thought, oh, it's good forecast, 2 days' time. Wonder how far I can go. I did 250 kilometers in the harbour.
Wow. Yeah. See, that
about 6 hours, but yeah, that's good fun. And you can see how fast can I go for an hour, my average speed over an hour. That's also pretty cool to do. These are all different things. You don't need crazy winds to do these things.
Yeah, and you can draw pictures as well, apparently.
Yeah, might take a bit of skill.
Okay, right. Let's get into the nerdy stuff, because I that's what GPS. There's like, when I started speaking to you, I was pretty much very naive, I would say, about GPSs and how they all work. I had this strange thing that all GPSs were the same.
Yeah. That's fair enough. Yeah,
they're not though, are they?
They're not. That's a fair enough assumption.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Wow, and where do you start? It's such a big subject. So let's say there's someone listening to this. They've never done GPS. They like the idea of it. Where do you start? What do you have to look out for? Because there's obviously different price points. It doesn't always mean more accurate, but it probably does in a roundabout way. But there are some bits in the middle. Well, maybe you can explain that. Where would you start, or where would you advise someone?
Yeah, so I did write a guide, because this is quite a common question to get. It's which watch should I get? And I don't know whether it's worth talking about how GPS works before we talk about.
Yeah, let's talk about how GPS works, and that will make sense then when we go into the watches. Let's start with that.
So I'll try to keep it short. I'll kind of oversimplify. You could go into any level of detail on this. And I realise we got a mixture of viewers. We got people that maybe have got a scientific or engineering background. We got people that do other things. So I'll try to keep it kind of suitable for everyone.
Yeah.
So it's worth mentioning GPS is one of several systems. They're collectively known as GNSS, Global Navigation Satellite Systems. So you've got GPS is an American system. You've got GLONASS, which is Russian. You've got Galileo, which is a European Union project, and you've got Beidou, which is a Chinese system. And you can use them collectively as if they're just one system, basically, from your perspective as a user. And they all work on basically the same principle. They've got a bunch of satellites in orbit, maybe 2 or 3 dozen each system. They're going around the Earth twice a day. And at any one given time, you've got a different selection of satellites. It's never the same. So actually, if you're talking about comparing watches, comparing how accurate they are from one day to the next, they're using different satellites. So you can't like test one watch one day and another watch another day, or even the same watch one day to the next. You have to do it together. There's also a couple of regional systems which kind of supplement it as well. So if you're ever looking at like a Garmin spec or an Apple spec, you might see QZSS mentioned. You might see NavIC. And they're regional. So this QZSS is for Japan. It's available in Eurasia, basically. And NavIC is an Indian system. So you'll see these collections of satellites. And then it comes down to how are these things working. And ultimately, they were designed to locate your position. We happen to use it for speed. We'll talk about that. But the way that the positioning works is it's essentially trying to work out, given it knows where the satellites are, it's trying to work out how long the signal took to travel from each satellite to your receiver. And then you can use some maths. It's a process called trilateration. You can work out what the position is, because the time it takes for the signal to travel is based on the speed it's moving. It's moving at the speed of light. So if you know how long it took, you know how long it traveled in distance, if you sit with me. There was a little image I gave you, actually, which is like a little animation thing. I don't know whether you got access to all these files.
Yes, I will try and do that now.
So I had this little image. It was in a folder. It was called Workings, and it was called GPS 24 Golden was the file name.
Let's see if I can open a GIF. Sometimes it doesn't
Hopefully
like it.
It'll animate, because it's like a little animated GIF.
Oh, it's trying.
Ooh. Oh, there you go. So like this is representing how GPS was like when it was first launched. There were a couple of dozen satellites. They were all going around the Earth, and this is like showing you that any one time you can see a number of satellites. They happen to be highlighted in red. And if you imagine those little lines between the satellite and the receiver, which is a little pointer on that Earth that's rotating, you can calculate the distance that that's traveled. And then you don't need to understand the maths. You just need to appreciate there's some maths that can work out what your position is based on where the satellite is and how long the signal took to travel.
Yeah.
So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you think that's the end of it. You think, well, we know the position, and therefore we can calculate the speed between 2 points. And that's kind of intuitive, but that's not how they work. Because the problem is the position, great as it is, it's only accurate to within a couple of meters, maybe half the time. The other half the time, it was worse than that. If you calculate the distance between 2 points, let's say they're a second apart, and you've traveled 20 meters in that 1 second, 20 meters per second is 40 knots or so.
Yep.
That would be fine if the positions were accurate, but they're not accurate enough to do that. Because if one of them's out by, say, a couple of meters, then the speed's going to be wrong by 2 meters per second, which is 4 knots. And that's really quite common. That's makes it essentially useless for us, because that's just too wrong. But it just so happens that while you're tracking the signal, we have to account for something else which is going on, which is, you can see from the diagram, all the satellites are moving, the Earth's rotating, and then you're going as fast as you can on a windsurfer. Everything's moving. And I think a lot of people will have heard of a thing called the Doppler effect. So the best example is if you hear a police car or an ambulance either approaching you or disappearing to the distance, the pitch or the siren changes. Either it's a high pitch as it gets closer, it's a lower pitch as it goes away. And the same thing happens with radio signals, which is what GPS signals are. So the frequency and the wavelength change based on the motions. And again, you don't need to understand the maths behind it, because that's all pretty complicated. All you need to know is that to receive the signal, it's got to work out what that Doppler shift is, what the new frequency is. And there's a little illustration of what the Doppler shift is. And then with some clever maths, you can basically work out what the speed of the receiver is based on everything else you know. You know where the satellites are, you know what direction they're traveling and how fast. And then the only explanation for the Doppler shifts is your motion, which remains. So it kind of uses that approach to work out the speed. And it just so happens that eliminates most of the errors which affect speed from positional calculations. So like I said, if you take 2 points, calculate the distance between them, there will be an error. But the biggest error sources in that calculation don't affect the Doppler shift. It's just one of those things. Again, we don't want to go perhaps into
the Doppler thing, you can use that. I think I know from the speed surfing, they use that to kind of calculate errors when we've seen.
So there's another thing, which is the potential errors. So it's perhaps easiest to visualize the position. And if you imagine that diagram where we had everything orbiting, you got those red lines, there is an error in the calculating each of those distances. But you come up with the best estimate of what the true position is, but there's going to be some error associated with it. And that can be calculated from the discrepancy between the measurement that you've taken for each satellite and your final decision as to where you are. There will be an error for all of them.
Okay.
And depending how big that is, you can come up with a statistical measure as to how accurate or inaccurate that is. You'll see it on your phone, for example. So if you got WhatsApp and you're sharing your location, when someone looks at it, it will say accurate to within 10 meters or 50 meters or whatever. And that's what's happening under the covers, is you got this little chip inside your watch or your phone. It's calculating your position, but it's also aware of the likely error, and it's producing this figure. And it's actually not quite what you think it is. It's not saying it's definitely correct to within 5-10 meters, whatever it's saying. It's actually based on errors being normally distributed. So you got like a bell curve you taught about in school, and it says one standard deviation is likely to be 5 meters, 10 meters, whatever. So it's all a bit statistical and bit mathematical.
It's pretty mad. When I hear all that, I honestly think, how the hell can it be that as accurate?
It's crazy, isn't it? It's like a modern day miracle. So this diagram here, it's got like a little visualization that you got a bunch of satellites. You actually need at least 4 of them. 4 is the minimum to determine where you are. Okay. Because if you think about the unknowns, there's your position. It happens to be calculated relative to the center of the Earth, which is another crazy thing. People know where the center of the Earth is to within like 1 meter. It's like, how on earth did you work out where the center of the mass of the Earth is? But anyway, so it's relative to that. Think of that as an XYZ coordinate. But there's another unknown, which is the satellites all have really good clocks on board. They've got atomic clocks on board. They're all calibrated actually to take account of general and special relativity as well. So we don't want to go down that route, but like Einstein's theories of relativity, you have to account for those for the clocks to work properly on the satellites. And then we've got something on our wrist, which is basically like a quartz watch. It's really not that accurate in terms of its timekeeping. So all these measurements you're taking, where the signal travels at the speed of light from satellite to the receiver, and you're trying to measure it really accurately. You've got this picture here. It's a little green chip at the top of this. It happens to be a Garmin Forerunner 245, I believe. So you've got that little GNSS chip, and then just above it, you've got this little gold strip of metal. That's the antenna, and it's picking up the signal. It's traveled 20,000 kilometers, which is the height of the satellites. It's traveled all that way. By the time it's got to your watch, it's about 1 million times weaker than your home Wi-Fi signal. And somehow that little bit of metal and that little chip works out where you are to within a couple of meters.
It's mad.
It's insane.
When you hear it like that and you see what it's actually doing, it is bonkers. I mean, like lots of things in this life at the moment. I saw something the other day that said, you know, people always say, oh, if I could go back, I'd invent this. And then someone was like, well, but you wouldn't even know where to start. And it's a bit like this. We've got all this stuff. I have got no clue how to even start with it. I don't even know how they even got to this place. Amazing.
So I think the idea came, they were obviously trying to work out their location for decades and decades, like after the Second World War maybe onwards. You were trying to work out where you are in the middle of the ocean or whatever. There were a number of systems that the Americans had, the Navy, the Army, the Air Force. They all had their own systems. And ultimately, in the early 70s, the GPS project got kicked off. That was one of the early receivers. So imagine going windsurfing with that.
I was thinking that. For anyone who's listening audio only, I've got some old school picture Mike sent me of early GPS stuff. It's quite ridiculous. Like a massive backpack with a dildo hanging out the top.
I mean, look at the guys have. At least you don't need a weight jacket.
Bloody hell. You could use that in leader. It'd probably be all right.
There's another one, isn't there, with like a couple of guys as well. Yeah, that's just so funny. I lost my train of thought now. Where were we with that?
No,
so
it's like early days
and stuff. And yeah, so I think in like the 60s, I think Sputnik, the Russian satellite system, was in orbit. And of course, the Americans were trying to kind of track it and see what's going on. And they tweaked that based on knowing where you are and the frequency of the signal coming from Sputnik, you can work out where Sputnik is. And then someone then realized if you flip that on its head, if you know where the satellite is, you can work out where you are. It's like the same mathematics, but it's all in reverse. So yeah, this diagram here, just maybe there's worth one more thing mentioning about this, which is you've got this control segment as well. So dotted around the Earth as these stations which are monitoring the satellites. They're keeping track of the orbits, because you need to know what the orbits are to work out where they are. Keeping track of the clocks on board as well to check what the clock errors are, because it's really significant if it starts drifting. We're talking about accuracy of micro nanoseconds, so they're like accurate to within a few billionths of a second, these clocks on board. Wow. And all this information gets sent back up to the satellite so they know what their orbits are and where they are, and they broadcast that very same data back down to the users. So your receiver knows where the satellites will be at any given point in time and what time it is on board those satellites as well. So that's kind of the three aspects to it. You got this space segment, satellites, control segment, which is, as I just kind of summarized, and you got the user segment, which is us. We've got watches, phones, these old things that we used to use. We got all sorts of things.
That's mad. Like, honestly, the more I think about it and I look at like wearing a watch, like you say, when you see that diagram, I mean, the opened up watch with all the little bits in it, it's just crazy that that can do all the things you ask it to. Like sometimes you forget that and you moan about things and you're like, well, is this bloody thing, you know, when you listen to it like that, you realize it's doing quite a lot.
So like we had these things, we used these for a long time in the speed sailing world. This is like what kicks off this whole Doppler thing as well. This is GT31 as it's called.
GT31,
still use it. But there was a precursor, it was this thing, GT11. And this was the very first device anyone tweaked that you can get these Doppler derived speeds as we refer to them. Actually, people call them just Doppler speed, but actually...
Are they still accurate? Like, let's say like...
Yeah, they're pretty good actually. Yeah, surprisingly. And the reason is, if you look inside them, I've got one of them which has been torn apart. So you got a little screen here, and this is the antenna. You got this big ceramic thing, with this big bit of silver. That's the antenna on this. And then you think back to that watch we just saw, and the watch isn't going to possibly replicate this, which has got good kind of electrical insulation. And it's not going to get so much interference. So yeah, there are limitations. The ideal antenna would be like so big, it would be a round thing you have on top of your head, which we're not going to do because
so that's the bit that would make it more accurate,
amongst other things. There's lots of nuance to this. So there are commercial receivers, surveyors use them, for example, and they're accurate to within centimeters, basically, potentially like 1 or 2 centimeters. They claim millimeters potentially. Wow. Which is even more insane to think that they can possibly do that.
It's bonkers. I mean, it is just absolutely mad. But from a windsurfing sense, when did GPS we first start using the GPS devices? I mean, it was.
I think it was early 2000s, around about maybe 2003, 2004. Some guys in the Netherlands started going out with Garmin handhelds.
Yes.
So we had these like yellow phone-sized things that you might have seen from back then.
Yeah.
And a few of them realised there was something to this. It was really good fun, and that ultimately turned into what is GPS speed surfing, the website gpsspeedsurfing.com. Then people started looking at, well, how do we make the results more reliable, more accurate? What devices do we need? And that's when someone who knew how GPS worked said, hey guys, you really need to be using these Doppler derived speeds. You need to stop using the positional stuff coming out of the Garmin's. And that's what set us down this pathway, basically, where we had the two things I've just shown you. And then they kind of created this thing, GW52. It was like precursor to the watch.
Okay, because I got this one. What's that?
So that's GW60. So like this thing here, this was the prototype, if you like, although it was commercial, for this thing.
Okay.
And these were really handy because, like, it's really, really nice just to have it on your wrist. It's really practical. No backpack.
So these are called what, Locosi or something like this?
Locus was the company.
Yeah. Okay.
So their main business, they made GPS modules. So you got the companies making these little chips. So you saw that little chip in the Garmin watch.
Yeah.
So that's the GPS chip itself. But if you start bundling it with other components, so it might have the antenna, it might have like some filters and amplifiers and oscillators and all sorts of other components that go with it, and you put it in a little package, then that's a GPS module. So Locus made these modules for a couple of brands of chipset. And I don't know what their motivation was for creating these devices we had for the speed sailing world, but I think maybe they were just like kind of demonstrating their products. It can't have been a big market compared to what they were doing as main business. But we ended up with these really good products for the windsurfing world. But sadly, Locus stopped making stuff around 2016.
Okay.
And then we were like scrabbling around going, right, well, what do we do now? Because we had these things. We knew they were pretty reliable, and the devices told us how reliable they were performing as well.
Yeah.
So you had people start creating these like custom devices, and the motion, lots of people have seen this thing.
Yes.
People will be wearing a Ludwitz and Print Speed and whatever.
Because a lot of the full-on speed sailors have these.
Yeah, so that's literally the best thing that you could have until just recently, actually. Again, sadly, he couldn't make that commercially viable, so he stopped making them. And we've kind of lost track of Julian as well. I'm not quite sure what he does with himself now, but that's no longer available. But we've got a similar thing. We use it for Speed Week. We've got these little things. They're called the Motion Mini, and they're just a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
But they're literally a black box. They've got one button and one lines. And these are the most accurate things you can currently take on the water. And maybe to within a couple of hundredths of a knot, they'll be identical on both arms. I sail with two of them, one on each arm. Because when I'm benchmarking, when I'm testing watches, you want something reliable to compare against. And those are just rock solid, like within a couple
but you can't see any details, so
that's where the watch becomes useful. And then you start getting apps on the watches, so like during COVID times, and like I say, Locus didn't make any watches anymore, so people in Australia, there's an online competition, it's called GPS Team Challenge. And the idea behind that is you kind of go out with a bunch of your mates and you take the speeds of the best two guys for a number of categories, and then you rank them against other teams across the country. And it's a really big thing. It's on Seabreeze, they chat about it. And they were using the mini motions as well. But the problem is you can't see what you're doing, and I can't go sailing and try to improve. I don't know what I'm doing from one moment to the next. So one of the guys involved in that, Andrew, I'm trying to think what his name, Andrew Hay, he created an app for the Garmin. It's actually a data field, as it's called, to give you some feedback while you're sailing. And then all of a sudden they had ways of measuring their performance. They're posted from a reliable device, but they were using Garmin's for feedback. But knowing they weren't really that accurate, might be wrong by a couple of knots on a fairly regular basis. But it was good enough to kind of give you an idea. But like moving on from there, we've seen all of a sudden the Garmin's got a lot better, like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It was that very same guy, actually, because he's been using Garmin's for years, and he posted it on the forum, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. I've not seen a watch perform like that before. So I bought one, used it for about, 6-9 months or so before started talking to the guys at GPS Speed Surfing saying, we've got an option here to start using Garmin's, because right then the only option we had was Coros were producing watches that they'd approved. And they had a lot of advantages, actually, because the battery life was amazing. You like charged it once every 4 weeks, which was like completely different.
That was game changing for me.
This thing was like 5 hours on the water.
If you're lucky.
Really, really annoying. So yeah, the Coros thing, that was amazing. It was integrated, so it automatically uploaded to GPS Speed Surfing, and it had some metrics on the watch itself, and it had a nice little summary on the phone when you finished. But that the accuracy wasn't as great as it might have been, but it was like a stepping stone to something better, if you like. And again, the Coast watches got a lot better with the next generation. So when they released the Apex 2 Pro, the Vertex 2, all of a sudden their watches got better as well. They happened to be using the same chips as the Garmin's. So it's not the be all and end all, the chip, but like there was a step change basically when those chipsets became available in commercial watches.
Interesting. I mean, I had a Coros, one of maybe one of the first ones, and I have to say it was fast. I've compared it to my Garmin, and I don't know if a watch can be fast, but it feels like it's faster. Can it be faster?
Yeah,
so fast watch. Which that's not a good thing.
The errors are kind of random, if you like. So it's not either always fast or always slow, but it has a potential to be wrong. Sometimes it will be a bit fast at some point in the session, and then it will show up when you look at your best run in the session, and it goes, "Oh, this watch is faster." I think I got a little folder of images as well, which I think I titled accuracy. I'm just opening that up. So it's perhaps worth having a look at that one where you got some kind of
which one?
There's 9 green runs, if you like.
Yeah, which folder is it in?
It's in a folder called accuracy.
Okay, yeah.
So like something comparing 9 runs. It's actually from some kind of Reddit post someone did. If you were to bring that up. So this is just kind of someone, he'd gone out with his running club, and they all had different watches, some Polars, some Apples, some Garmin's. And he just did the simple plot of where people have been running around the park. And you can see when you can look at the bottom, it's very clear where people are running.
Yeah.
And then you look at the top, it's like, well, it's kind of got the general gist of where you've been running, but it's clearly nowhere near as good as the bottom ones.
Yeah.
And this also happens to coincide with these newer chipsets. It was it's a brand called Aurora, basically, which started producing much better results within the watches. Prior to that, it was a brand, well, we all know Sony. I should turn off WhatsApp applications. It's kind of distracting. Thanks, Marco. Yeah, so that's like positional accuracy, but we're really interested in speed. And I've mentioned before that under the covers, your GPS chipset is working out the speed using the Doppler shift. So if you look at, there's a little graph in that same folder, and it's comparing someone. This was someone in the water speed chat, and he was out with his phone. It was an Apple phone, and he was out with a Polar watch as well.
That one?
Yeah, so that's the fella. So this is just overlaying the speeds reported and recorded by these two devices. So you got the Polar, which in itself has problems, is the blue line, believe it or not.
Okay.
And then you've got the watch, which is doing these crazy oscillations, or kind of sawtooth, you might call it. And then that massive spike in the middle, I can't read the number, but is it like 70 or 80 knots or something crazy? It's just out of the blue in the middle of the run.
Yeah, 75 knots.
Yeah, so something like that. It just did it out of the blue for no good reason. And the problem with these errors, even if it doesn't do those big ones, I'd argue actually it's when it's wrong by 3 knots. That's the big problem, because it's easy to believe it. And unless you look at the data and understand how your watch performs, it's really hard to know whether you can trust the results at the end of the day. Crashing is a good way to make it report the wrong number, because it loses the signals, loses lock. And while it's trying to reacquire them, it can basically just be wrong for that small moment in time, might be a few seconds, and just report erroneous stuff. So if you ever kind of get back to the beach and you see 60, 70, 80 knots on your GPS, it's probably when your watch was in the water. And that doesn't matter to like a runner or a cyclist. They're interested in how far did they run, how long did it take them, and seeing kind of where they were running. But for us, we've got this slightly unique thing where we're saying we're starting to measure ourselves on our top speed. And we're saying, well, we were doing 50 knots for 1 second. It's like, well, yeah, how do you know that was even real? Because
hey, don't ruin it. Don't ruin it.
Sorry, mate. I just realised what I said there.
I did 50 knots for 1 second. I think I'm claiming it.
Yeah. So yeah, I had another image actually, which just kind of you got 3 watches
Yeah,
side by
sorry, let's have a
side.
look.
It's in that
Yeah,
same folder.
yeah.
So when that's open, so that's 3 Coros watches, and Coros had a bit of a mare last year. We're around about May time. So bear in mind these were on my van, and if they were performing correctly, would all show the same number. But
Yes.
we got this one watch on the left reporting 41.5 knots, and you got this one on the right reporting 43.8. It's like a really big difference if you're comparing yourself to your mates,
Yes.
or even yourself. And that's basically because I had a bit of a mare with their firmware releases. They did something really weird on their new watches, which we reported. I kind of got in contact with guys at GPS Speed Surfing. We contacted Coros. A few months later, I said, right, we fixed it. And as a consequence of what they did, they then broke their older watches. And the older watches stopped reporting the Doppler speed. So this high speed on the right is because it's gone to using non-Doppler speeds. The one in the middle is working correctly because I had a motion running at the same time, which was 42.5 knots. And the one on the left was the problem they introduced in May, which made their watches slower. So they had an absolute mare last year, and it took them about a year to resolve all the problems. And I think they've reintroduced one of the problems this year as well. So I'm slightly despairing of
It's
of
difficult,
them.
isn't it? Because if anyone's ever had a watch where, you know, like, let's be honest, if it's recorded a little bit higher, it's not such a problem because your ego's
Depends on your
still there.
perspective.
Yeah, I know.
Although you want your watch not to underread when you're competing against your mates, and you're like, maybe you're competing for a beer at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But you want your watch to be right. You want the watches to be right. You don't want yours to underread, and you don't want your mates to overread. Basically.
No, exactly. I mean, you want it accurate, but it's like, for me personally, like, if it's a little bit faster, it's not bad. But if it's recorded slower, which is the problem, if it is recorded inaccuracy, as you said before, it's not higher all the time. It will be higher and lower. So ideally, you need to track down the most accurate watch. I mean, and that's, you know, and that's the stuff I've got from reading. I know you made a little bit of a kind of a paper on it, a document, which I will link in the comments actually after the end of this podcast, because I think it was super useful for me anyway. And I had a lot of friends, or, you know, the community basically messaging me after a couple of, when I sort of said, oh, I've got this new watch there, what watch you using? And then, but the problem I've found is when you tell someone you're using a Garmin, it's almost like, oh, he's using a Garmin, right? Go online and I'll just buy a Garmin. But as I know from reading your stuff and looking into it more, it's not as simple as buying. It's like if you're looking like in a VW car, it's like the difference between buying a Passat and a VW Transporter. You know, they're different, even though they're the same brand. They're very different, sort of, in terms of what's in them and how they work. So, would you just, I mean, I know it's a bigger topic, but if someone was saying to you, what watch should I buy at the moment? Because as you said before, the Mini Motion, or, you know, these devices are obviously the most accurate. But I think for your normal punter, for a guy like me who's not, you know, into it professionally, they want something on their wrist. Because for me, I've got to remember to charge it. I've got to remember to take it to the beach. If I've got a watch, and these watches are so good now with battery, it's just on your wrist. So you go to the beach, you think, oh, well, stick the GPS on, and it just turns a kind of aimless session into something that's got tangible, something you can, you know, get some data off. So what would you suggest in the watch front at the moment?
So you also need to consider whether you want to be posting to GPS Speed Surfing. So there's guys like yourself, you're quick on a windsurfer, you want something reasonably accurate, and that's one thing. There's other guys that want to post, want to be eligible for prizes in online competitions on GPS Speed Surfing. So they have a list of approved watches, which effectively equate to this particular chipset within the Garmin watches and the Coros watches.
Okay.
They also approve the old Coros watches currently. So you might want to, so there's 2 brands there. There's Coros and Garmin. They both produce good feedback on the water. Coros, it's built into it. Garmin, you install an app. I use an app called AP Pro, which I can't recommend highly enough. That's really awesome. I think you use it.
I was going to say, I would suggest, like, I obviously, I've been saying about water speed, but for me, the app for water speed is not very windsurfing specific. So although I've got the app for water speed on the phone, which I think is really cool, you get all the details, you can be part of challenges and do all that stuff, which I think is really fun. On the watch, I'm running that AP Pro. And the main reason, which I like it, is you can get like a bit like on this watch. I don't know if everyone's ever used let me just get rid of the 61. I used to love that sort of long list of all the little details. So you get the 2 second, you get the VMAX, the 2 second, the 10 second, the 5 times 10 second average, and you get all this. And that AP Pro does that. And it also, which is the main one for me, when you finish a run and you do a jibe, it basically shows you your top speed for that run, or goes through the 2 second max, the 5 second, or the 10 second, or whatever you've got on the watch at the end of the run, and shows you the previous top speed. So like all this is happening without you having to touch the watch. So all you have to do is, as you jibe, you look at your watch and you can go, that was a good run. Because that's the fun bit. I for people who've never done GPS, for me, that's what it is. You want instant feedback. That's the whole idea of having the watch. You come in, you think you've had a blast, you do your jibe, and you want to look at your watch and see what it was on that run, and then reminded of what your previous top
exactly. Yeah, it's amazing like that. So you can either jibe or you can stop. Some speed spots, you literally stop, you get off, you have a glance at your watch, but you don't need to press a button, which is also a really good idea when you're using watches on the water, because you don't want water to get into them, because that will kill them ultimately. So
I would say, if you are buying a Garmin watch, I don't know if it does it for other ones, but the Garmin watch, that AP Pro app, I've told so many people to get that because it's just perfect. It works super well.
So actually, it's worth mentioning that the guy that created that, Scott Sims, he's been doing it for years and years, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. I forget how long he's been developing and maintaining it. You can donate to him as well via a link on the Garmin store. So
I didn't know that.
If you like it, I've certainly given
I'll give him a couple of quid.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, bit of money or whatever. So my personal preference at the moment is the Garmin's for the feedback on the water. The firmwares have been more reliable of late, but also there's a big range for different budgets. So like, you can buy a brand new watch for anything from £200 to ridiculous, what I call ridiculous prices, £2,000 or so.
Is that what the top ones are? Wow.
Yeah, so they actually even have like £2,800 Garmin watches, which are basically the same insides as the £700 Phoenix, but they've just made them a bit more bling for people that want an expensive watch. You can also get some really good bargains on the older ranges. So, for example, now the current flagship is Phoenix 8, Phoenix 8 Pro, Phoenix 7 watches, and the equivalent with the AMOLED screen, the Epics. They're currently on offer for like 300, 400 quid, which is an absolute bargain, because they used to be like 800, 900 quid. They're I've got literally the same thing, but
So what's that, a 7?
So this is actually the Epics. It's exactly the same as your watch, but it's got a different screen type. So that's a decision. If people are buying a watch, you've basically got two choices, screen types. You've got what's called an MIP display, memory inline pixel, I think it stands for. That's what you've got. That reflects light back, so it gets brighter, the brighter the sunlight, which is really quite cool when you're windsurfing somewhere sunny. In the UK, when it's grey, you don't get that benefit. So the AMOLED is basically the same technology as a mobile phone screen. So it's like bright, vivid colours, but it's typically not on all the time because it drains the battery. So you can like flick your wrist and the screen comes on. So you take your choice. There's no better or worse. They're the two options there.
Interesting. So it, like, at the moment, like I said, I've got that. Is it Phoenix 7 Pro Solar? I mean, there's loads of little.
It'll be Phoenix 7 Pro Sapphire Solar.
That's it. That's the one.
A bit of a mouthful,
yeah. So what's the price ranges? And in terms, again, I know it's a big subject, but roughly accuracy, how much you got to spend to get something that will do the
It's around
job?
about 200 quid mark.
200 quid,
get something that you can trust. They're going to be correct within, most of the time, within 2 or 3 tenths for most metrics. Top speed, 2 seconds, can be wrong by quite a bit more. 0.7, 0.8 of a knot, maybe a knot, worst case. But nothing really beyond that, other than you have some massive crash and it creates a spike. That's pretty rare on the newer watches, actually, but it can happen still, just less than the old watches. So like the go-to almost at the moment is the Forerunner 255, which is, it's like two generations ago now. So you had the Forerunner 255 and the Forerunner 265 succeeded it. And now there's something called the 570, which has superseded that. But if you go back in time, it's pretty much just as good GPS-wise. You can get it for under £200 in the UK. And yeah, it's a solid choice. That's kind of where you start looking. And then it's like, well, do I want to get something cheaper? Then you might look at something which isn't suitable for GPS speed surfing, but there are cheaper models. Forerunner 165, for example, especially when it's on offer. Or you might look up for something which is a bit more robust. So I kind of like a sturdy watch, same as your one. And it's kind of built to take a few knocks. So the Forerunner watches are entirely plastic. They're lightweight. They do seem to survive on water, to be fair, but they might scratch a bit more easily. And yeah, take your choice, basically. Do you want a lightweight watch or a heavy duty one?
But you have to be careful which model as well, because I remember when I was looking at your thing, or you could have a Forerunner which is not that chipset, or you could have a I can't remember which.
So over time, all the ranges, so Forerunners and Phoenix. So there's like 4 different groups of Garmin watches. It's really overbearing when you look at the website.
There's a hell of a lot. I mean, I rang Mike. This was how I think I first got in contact, I think, because I'm like, Mike, what
should I buy?
Yeah, exactly. I hadn't got a clue. And it was genuine.
Yeah, because the other thing is, like, you'll ask a question online and everyone, it would seem, on the internet will say what their favorite watch is. It's like,
well, this was the problem. It's like if you've got back pain and you go online and you say, I've got back pain, everyone has got their own experiences. But it's hard to know who to trust. The same with windsurfing forums, same with everything. You know, there's a lot of amazing advice out there, but trying to decipher which is coming from reliable sources is pretty difficult. I got to be honest. So
I think failing to acknowledge the nuance is normally a giveaway when someone doesn't perhaps know enough about it, but giving their opinion.
No, I
think
just
a 2-word this.
I definitely think you're qualified. Although I would say this, but just because I've done all your, I've read all your stuff and kind of understand it, and I'm like, well, you know, I know it's not as simple as just get a Garmin, get a Coros, get a you know, whatever. It isn't that simple. And
so
again,
Garmin's, there is that little guide I wrote, because I get asked it repeatedly on the beach, online, on Messenger, WhatsApp.
Sorry about that.
Speed group. So I was thinking for a long time, I really should write a guide. Like round about the time you were asking, I was thinking I really should write a guide about this. And like a year later, I finally got around to it. So that's where I kind of point people, and it walks you through the price points and what you might choose. But if you it's
super useful. It's super useful. If anyone hasn't seen it, like I said, I will post the link, but it's basically a thorough look through. There's a quick view of which watches have got this certain chipset, which rough prices, and obviously then you can kind of use that to go online and then find some good deals on those models. But I would, again, Mike can maybe tell you different, but I would stick to the models that he's actually saying, because they do differ. Sure. Or at least understand what you're looking for, chipsets and all that sort of stuff, which it says in the guide as well.
You know what one of the best features is of the watch, and I'll just demonstrate it right now, is this thing. That is so freaking good. I didn't know I needed it until I had it.
100%. I've said this to more people. I've said, I don't believe I've paid for a watch this much money. Like that was my first thought. I can't believe this is happening. But the thing that I use the most is that light. If you haven't got a light on your watch, you do not know what you're missing. It is absolutely, I don't do without it now. It's
no, you use it in the middle of the night, use it in the daytime, looking in the dark cupboard. It's just so useful.
It's super useful. So if you are buying a watch, I can honestly say, look for one with a light on it. It's nothing to do with GPS windsurfing or speed surfing, but it is honestly worth it. It is amazing. And the batteries on these things are crazy. The one thing you have to be careful of is where you put the bloody lead to charge the watch,
Yeah.
because you don't use it that often.
Yeah.
It depends how much you're using the GPS. But if you're not using the GPS that much, or there's not much wind, it's really easy to lose that lead. I was waiting for a company to come up with like a bright orange lead, or, a pink lead, which is so like when you put it down or you put it in if I've got, so you can't believe how many leads I've got around here. A black lead just gets lost with everything else. So that is worth tagging so you don't lose it. Well, that's maybe just me.
I've got tons of them in the house, but then again, I've got quite a few Garmin's. You might see my picture.
I was about to say, I have seen quite a few watches. I mean, how many watches have you tested over the years?
Over the years or just recently? Sorry.
Well, you tell me. I mean, like I saw a picture. I think you sent it. I'll put it on now. But these are not all your watches, are they? Or are these borrowed?
Yeah, fair to say they are currently. I will be selling them off again.
All these watches.
Yeah, believe it or not.
One,
it was
two,
the only
three,
way
four,
that I could
5, 6,
ascertain
7, 8,
really
9,
whether you get the performance you would expect. You can't make assumptions, basically. You can't just say this watch looks the same as this on spec, so therefore it is going to behave the same. That's just simply not true. So a lot of these were bought just to do specific types of tests. So I just bought them on Facebook Marketplace or eBay, whatever, and I'll be getting rid of them again now I'm done with them. But yeah, wow. At the moment I've got a crazy number of watches. Because one of the
how many? Give me a number, because there's people listening audio only. They can't see this picture.
Oh Lord, there's probably about 16 of them there or something.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe a couple more.
Wow.
Some of these were like 20, 30 quid. Don't get me wrong, they're not all like 500 quid watches. Some of them are super cheap, which interestingly, if you're on a real tight budget and you want to find something under 100 quid, you can find things on eBay or Marketplace, even like Phoenix 5 or Forerunner 935 spring to mind. And you'll get some fairly good results from that, barring when you crash and it will do something crazy. You can still install AP Pro or give you an idea. It's not an approved device for GPS speed surfing or GPS chain challenge. But yeah, by all means, if you're on a budget and that's what you want to pay, then look out one of those watches. Avoid certain models. Phoenix 6 was problematic. Forerunner 245, 945 was problematic. All the Sony watches are problematic, basically. They produce crazy spikes.
Interesting. And what about phones? Because you would imagine they're big, so you could kind of like, if someone wanted to, I guess they could put the big.
Yeah, so where the antenna tends to be on phones is around the rim. So actually, phones like Apple make metal phones basically, and that's really unfriendly for radio signals.
Oh, okay.
So they've got a challenge that they've created for themselves by creating metal rimmed phones. So plastic phones don't have nearly the same problem, but there is still a problem. It's where you squeeze the antenna in, how it's going to be oriented. People tend to shove a phone down the wetsuit under a life jacket, which is pretty much the worst thing you can do for GPS. It's got enough challenges.
Okay, let's talk about that, because that is interesting. And I'm probably guilty of that. Does it matter if
I was as well when I started? Yeah.
Does it matter if it pokes out a bit like this, or does it have to be totally clean? So
it's difficult. So it's really, it will vary from day to day. There's like no one truth for this. For sure, you can have problems if it's under your wetsuit sleeve and it's wet. That can cause problems. I've seen it numerous times. There might be other days where it's absolutely fine. So I just go for the certainty of it being correct. In the summer, I've got short sleeve.
The idea is you want it as totally as clean as possible, nothing around it. Is that
yeah,
correct?
I don't think touching it would be a problem. Under that should be okay. But yeah, just don't like have it underneath entirely like that, because if your sleeve's wet, then it can be erratic. And it's not that it just stops reporting, it will just not be doing its best, and it might be wrong by fractions of a knot or potentially multiple knots. You just don't know really.
Yeah, because that is, I mean, that is, especially when it's cold, you know what I mean? Like,
I'd wear them on top of my wetsuit. I just right, no heart rate readings.
Okay, because I quite like the heart rate reading.
Yeah,
but that's interesting. Okay, so you wear it on top of the wetsuit.
yeah.
Okay, well that's okay.
But I see it more with phones. Phones tend to be the ones with the crazy results. We saw that with that one example. I didn't pick it out specifically. It's just a random phone example. Some phones are good, some are bad. Partly the chipset, partly the antenna, partly all sorts of other matters. So I kind of encourage people, at the very least, to have some kind of watch on their wrist. Will be better than the phone, probably.
Yeah. Okay.
Because these chips, incidentally, they're like $1.50. So your watch is like 600, 700 quid. It's not a GPS tracker. That's not its purpose in life. It happens to do that. It's got heart rate. It's got accelerometer, gyroscopes, thermometers, compasses. It's got all sorts of things. And then loads of software that Garmin have written for us. That's what you're paying for. You're not paying for a GPS receiver.
So, yeah, okay, that's interesting. So if one of these companies wanted to do, let's say a one-off watch, which is literally the main thing it would do, as well as a few other things, because you want it to be a little bit multi-purpose. You want a light on it. They could create something better.
Potentially, but the problem with the watch is you've got limited space to put all the components that you're going to need, because you're going to need all the other things. You need the CPU, you need all the storage, you need your Bluetooth and your Wi-Fi. And to be honest, it's kind of limited. And the antenna design is limited, because I showed you this thing as well, which is what's inside. The Motions have got something like that inside it. There's these DIY things. It's called the ESP, which is like a little motherboard that you connect up a GPS chipset, GPS module, put it in a box of your choice. Might be 3D printed, might be an old GoPro case. And then there's another one being developed, Lisa Windsurfing. You probably know about this. He's working on something. I've kind of been chatting with him a little bit about that. So that's got a lot of potential. Maybe that will be our go-to in years to come.
Okay. I mean, and that's the thing. There is a difference between the guys that, let's say, take it pretty seriously. They want to break records. They want, and obviously that's, I would say, the GPS surfing community, which has done an amazing job over the years. A lot of people put a lot of work into that, and it's still the sort of benchmark of speed sailing. The people at the top, and it's, but basically they check when there's a record, they go in and check all the data compared to the Doppler stuff. I mean, again, gets over my head for a little bit, but that's kind of what happens. And then obviously I've been involved with the water speed guys who started off, I think it was designed for sort of yachting and this type of stuff, anything on the water with your phone. And then as they've kind of progressed, they've gone a little bit more into the more water sports. Like I think they're quite into winging now, obviously doing the windsurfing stuff, which I've been having a lot of fun with. And I've said to people, it's like, you got to remember, you've got GPS speed surfing, which is still the benchmark. It's not going to disappear. GPS speed surfing,
for sure,
still going to be there, but the water speed app is just this plug and play easy kind of thing which you can have a lot of fun with. But no stipulations on the watches and stuff you can use with the water speed.
It would be nice if they were to show you what it was recorded on. It's like, if all the fast guys are using decent watches and the people that you care about, what they're using, kind of takes some of the problems away. You might know, that might not have been a real speed. But it is a really user-friendly app, I have to say. And they've improved it over the last 6 months or so, because we started talking about speed results. And it's been getting a lot better. So, that's...
Well, I'm going to say there was definitely a bit in the summer when I was speaking with them, and they had a few things where they updated something, again, a bit like Coros, when it kind of went a little bit glitchy. And I think now you've also had a word with them more recently, and they've changed a few things. And from what I can see, I've been kind of following it a bit now. It's improved all the little...
for sure. I mean, the big thing is they basically switched from using positional data to using the Doppler derived speeds where it's available. So basically your watch will report what it calls speed. How it's calculating that is up to Garmin or Coros, Sunto, whoever. So they use the speed that's provided rather than recalculate it themselves. And when you're using the water sports activities, windsurfing, kite surfing, etc., that will be the Doppler derived speed from Garmin. will be from Coros, barring the firmware issues that some people still have dodgy firmware. So that's heading in good direction, and it's easy. It's plug and play, like you say.
Yeah, I would say we're going to be doing some challenges on Windsurfing TV with that sort of stuff. Also, Luderitz at the moment, we've got to talk about it because you're a speed guy. Have you been following that? Because it looks like they've been a bit unlucky.
It's not the best year for wins, no.
It was strange because the whole Luderitz thing, it kicked off, with the Patrick guys going over there early, and they got some hell wind. And it was, I kind of had this feeling, I was kind of, after last year, I thought, I know what happens after these big years. Everyone sees it from home. Then they get excited. They start thinking, I'm going to go next year, as if it's going to be the same. And I've been part of one of those type of things, and it doesn't work like that. And I was nervous.
There's a statistical phenomenon. It's known as regression to the mean. And if you have an outlier, statistical outlier, which you could say last year was maybe, then the next time is going to be, in all likelihood, closer to the mean. That's a statistical known. It's a certain.
I just had that feeling. I was thinking, because there were so many records broke last time. A lot of things line up. When I went to England, I know, because the course has to be exactly right. The wind that year has to be the right angle for the course, which we're getting down to just tiny degree here and there. It's hardly anything, because over 500 meters, that makes a huge difference. And I actually saw one of the runs down the track in the lighter winds earlier, and I thought it looks a bit choppy, which sometimes can mean it's very broad, or the wind is, so then you get the chop coming down, which everyone's laughing at me in the comments, like, oh yeah, choppy, man. But I'm like, I know what it's like in Luderitz. The difference of like a tiny bit and a little bit, it adds up down the channel. So it was a bit nerve-wracking. And then I thought, okay, maybe it's going to change. And so far, they just haven't had the days. But it is interesting. Like, I've been following, obviously, the results on the Luderitz Speed Challenge. Antoine Albo has not been at the top.
No, it's quite noticeable. I don't know whether maybe
it hasn't been windy yet.
To come into his own, I don't know.
Exactly. We haven't had the strong winds. So, I guess most people would say, well, no one's really doing anything yet. But it is interesting. Usually he's pushing harder.
He's normally up there regardless,
And obviously change of sponsors. And I think this was the really interesting thing about Luderitz this year is it's like a battle of the brands again. And that kind of disappeared, I thought, for a few years. But now we've obviously got Vincent Wagner, one of the fastest guys in the world, the guy who's been the closest to taking that world record off Antoine Albo. He's changed to full Patrick. Patrick is the mental with when it comes to gear and trying to do it. So I think this is already interesting. I didn't see that happening. And then you got Albo, which I definitely didn't see happening, totally changing from Neil Pride over to Severn. And then you've got, the duotone crew, which is the Brits at the moment, and Sai's been putting in some good speeds, went to, looking at 50. Jenna Gibson, obviously the world record holder. Heidi Ulrich comes back after getting her record beaten last year. Then you've got Gunnar Asmussen, who goes out there and buys Neil Pride because he's been on.
He's right up there. If you look at this year's results,
he looks
right next to Vincent.
I've been hearing a few good things about Gunnar. So again, have we had, there's obviously more people to mention, but we haven't had that nuking wind yet.
And the other person that we haven't mentioned is Cedric as well. I mean, obviously Bjorn's out there. You can't have
Bjorn, that's what I'm saying. They're all there.
But Cedric earlier this year in France got the fastest ever 500 on open water down in the Palm. So it's a natural beach. It's just down the beach from Deafy Wind, Greaseham.
Yeah.
You've been there, haven't you? To look.
Yeah.
It's like 7 or 8 kilometers further down. So anyone that's done Deafy will know as you go down the course, it gets windier and windier. You get to the jibe mark, it's just nuking, and it's really broad. But it carries on doing that further down the coast, and that's where La Palme is. So not only is it even windier, but the angle is even broader than you're doing on Deafy Wind at the far end, and it's just a brilliant speed spot. It's just amazing.
It's crazy. I went there once. What they don't tell you though in all these videos, it says friggin' sandbank sometimes as you go down the course. So you go in there, and when we went there, it was honestly probably the windiest I can remember. It was. The video just does not do it justice. You could hardly, you had to park your van into wind, otherwise I reckon it'd blow over. It was so freaking windy. Like our boat could hardly go in a straight line, and I was on like, I think like a 4.2 like wave sail on my speedboard just for fun. But it was terrifying. It was like you were worried if you crashed, you couldn't get back on. But then also they were like, I think this was the weirdest stuff. Heidi's there and Vincent was there. This is a few years ago. They were like, I think there's a couple of sandbanks. You're like,
they're in different places each year. Exactly. And I think through the seasons they're different. So when we were doing, it was World Champs in April, as you entered the speed run, you went inside the sandbar. And I think it was probably like about 2 meters wide between the beach and the sandbank.
Yeah, it was really ridiculous.
40 knots or so because you're still accelerating.
It's like running the gauntlet.
And it's this tiny little gap that you're diving through. And if you were to run over the sandbank, you will catapult. You will hit your fin and catapult, and it wouldn't be any fun at all.
Nice. It is. It's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But they're doing a good job down there. Obviously, Baldini. Yeah, Principe doing, like, you know what I mean? And I always say this, you need these guys in the sport. You know, everyone's got their own roles, but he is pushing the speed down there. You know, if he's not organizing it, if he's not pushing, if he's not getting the licenses, if he's not, it's not happening. Yeah, it's just
him and his partner Vanessa, the two of them, it's entirely through their hard work, devotion, sacrifices that we get those competitions.
Yeah. No, amazing. Again, these competitions, it always scares me because I really want them to get the best. But at the same time, you almost, it's cool that it doesn't happen all the time. You know, like this is what makes it special when it does happen. It's not like you go to Luderitz every year and it's windy every year and whatever. You got to put that work in. That, you know, the problem is it's expensive, obviously, because it's, you know, it's not a big thing. So it takes a lot of money to do it. Yeah, no stress. And you kind of think, is it going to happen this year? It doesn't look like it. But again, when I was there, you only need that one day. And sometimes those days get under forecast and they come through crazy. All the guys are there. Everyone's ready. The only thing is you kind of need a couple of warm-up days, like you need it windy, but you don't need it record breaking because you need to get your gear ready. And this was the problem I think most people have had over the years is like, how do you practice for a record-breaking run? The thing is you don't.
I think last year, Luderitz actually worked out almost perfect in that it got windier and windier, better and better each day. So you kind of you worked into it and built up. Because you couldn't just turn up and it's absolutely nuking and you're going to do well. You're not going to be able to sail, most people anyway.
Yeah, no, and that's what you don't get. Again, with video, with pictures, you can't really grasp how windy it is because you think, Luderitz the fastest, you're going to do it, but it's scary. Like to go around that corner, I saw like a thing from Cedric, I think it was. He said like his first day back on the channel was a bit like, bloody hell, I forgot, you know, what it's actually like. And it's not a walk in the park. It's easy to go quick, but it's not easy to push the records and to push the real high stuff.
It's a bit like that at some spots. We got West Kirby in the UK, which is a marine lake. It's got a concrete wall around it, but when the wind comes from the right direction, you can sail along the wall, basically. But you end up sailing almost straight at the wall before you bear off onto your run. And if it's really windy, it can be so windy that some people can't bear off. So they're making this choice is, do I commit to this because I don't know if I can bear off and then I'll crash straight into a brick wall, or do I just bail? So you get a lot of people bailing. It's a weird thing to be sailing straight at a brick wall at 40 knots.
Well, do you find yourself looking through the GPS stuff? Because you can obviously see where people have been sailing, you know, even if they don't sort of mention it. Because I saw O'Sheen recently. I was looking at the water speed challenge, and I almost thought it was a glitch because I was like, 40, like it's a 250 meter average speed, and it's something like 45, 46 knots.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Yeah,
I was like, what? Well, and then I sort of clicked on the, you know, the details. I click on the GPS, and I'm like, it's in Ireland. You know, he's not in Luderitz.
Yeah.
But he was actually beating Pettifer, who's over in Luderitz, and I was thinking that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
He's posted a video of that online. It's on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm
really
actually
cool
gonna put a bit of that and send it this Sunday, because it's
Nice.
super cool. And there are these spots which, you know, they don't work all the time. They usually, the Dutch have got a couple of sneaky ones up their sleeve where they don't shout about it, but if you can follow some of the GPS stuff, it's like they have got some crazy spots, but they're only good for when the tide is perfect depth, I guess. What's your favorite speed spot?
Sorry?
What's your favorite spot when it works?
So I think the Palm, but it's a lot of trouble to get down there.
Yeah.
But in the UK, we got Southend, we got West Kirby, are the two best known.
Southend's pretty solid.
So Southend is it's in the Thames estuary, and when the tide drops, there's this big sand bank comes out of the water. And again, we sail on the leeward side of the sandbank, and you can do good nautical mile there as well.
Okay.
You can do like 2 kilometers maybe flat out. Well, I think I did 38 knots. I've got friends done 40 knots, for a mile, which is a long time. It's like a minute and a half going at that speed. It's a long time to go fast.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. It's a really surreal
experience. How long does that last? Like it's
about a minute and a half. I think it's like
the tide when it's
sorry, it's about 2.5, 3 hours each side of low tide.
Okay.
Depends on the exact tide depth, but it's roughly 2.5, 3 hours.
Oh, okay.
So you kind of have to hope that the wind forecast, the strongest bit of the wind, coincides with daylight, coincides with the tide. And if it's not raining, that's a bonus.
And you've got the right sail, or you got, because
So Southend, you carry your kit. It's a 20-minute walk carrying your kit into the wind.
Oh my God, that sounds horrendous.
Which isn't the nicest thing. You have your session, which is amazing most times, and then you walk back and you don't care about the walk because you're feeling so good after a good session.
Jesus, I saw, because there are some gnarly ones like that. There was this I think it was a Dutch video where some guy crashed and broke his arm. Did you see that?
No.
Oh my God, he's in the middle of nowhere and he crashes, and on the video, and it's like like snapped off, or I think it was his finger. And I was like, what? Like, because it's not like West Kirby. If you crash, you're next to the car park. You could probably walk back, someone come and get you.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Whereas some of these places where they're hiking through the mud.
Talk about West Kirby crashes. I think you've got a picture of mine, haven't you?
I actually do. I mean, there's some amazing speed crashes from all over the place, I've got to be honest.
Yeah.
That one is, let me work out where it is.
It's a good one if you can zoom in.
Is that the one?
That's the one. Yeah. No, it's kind of, if you're going to crash, you got to have your mate there with the camera taking a photo.
So that's your head.
I'm upside down.
I was about to say. That's just after the slingshot or near the end?
That was after the slingshot. So I was doing about 45 knots. I was still accelerating. I'd done a few knot runs, which were like 45 knots or so. And that one felt like the best of all of them. And I thought, I feel like I'm a bit too upright, but it seems to be going fine. So I'll just kind of keep going with it. And then the next second, pulled onto my toes, catapult, mast hit the water, hooked in, ripped the harness lines off the boom, and then bounced like 3 times. Cartwheeled, more like, actually.
The question is, Mike, what did the GPS say?
No, it was over 45 when I crashed.
God. Oh, Jesus.
I don't want to be repeating it, but it's a good crash.
That's the cool thing with actually GPS, when you can kind of do that sort of stuff. When we were here for the Portuguese championships, I had a pretty big crash on the first reach. Board took off, lost it, and I lost my Insta360. I hit the mast and it knocked the mount off. I thought it was super deep. I didn't think about it. And we were back at the beach, and I was kind of like writing it off, going, "Oh, we'll never find it." And then someone said to me, they go, "Didn't you have your GPS on?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Yeah." It's like my brain was like, it was all came to me. It wasn't like, I could work it out. So I like get on that water speed app and I'm looking at the track and I'm like, it's so obvious. It was like, I'm going, and then suddenly that donk, and I'm like, right, it's there. So then we got this boat. We literally went to exactly where it was, looked down, put the mask on, the diver goes down, straight away comes back up, goes, there it is. I was like, Wow, that's like
That's
it
amazing.
sounds daft. It's so
Yeah,
obvious because that's what the GPS is originally for,
yeah,
plotting where it is. But yeah, it was kind of eye-opening to how accurate, you know,
yeah,
literally you're like, it's there.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
oh, it is there. Pretty
Yeah.
crazy.
Like I say, for the most part, consumer device, it'll be accurate to within a couple of meters,
Yeah,
roughly half the
that's
time. Yeah.
that is crazy. So what's your top speeds like in terms of you obviously doing a bit of
So
foiling as well.
on Fin, it's like so if we're talking about top speeds, we're talking about like 45.5 knots or so.
Yeah.
We're talking about we have this concept of an average on GPS speed surfing where we take our best 5 runs and you take fastest 10 seconds in each of those runs, average it, and that's 43 something knots. 500 meters, like 40.8, something like that. These are all in the UK. I've not been
Yeah.
to the Leadwich. And foil as well, which is a lot scarier. We're going a lot slower. So like 33-ish top speed, 30, 31 and a half average, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. It's
So it's
interesting.
kind of fast. It's not as fast as PWA guys by any means. It's like 3 or 4 knots slower than those guys because they're going insane speeds. It's still pretty fast.
No, it's quick. If you've ever been quick-ish on a foil, even in like mid-20s, it's pretty terrifying. As soon as you get to near 30, it's a bit
It's
twitchy.
when you're like a bit unstable and it could
Yeah.
all go very wrong very quickly.
So
And when you do crash, you've got a few seconds to think about it because you start losing control before the crash.
yeah,
Like it's coming.
that's the problem. It's like almost slow-mo, isn't it? Even though it's not
Yeah.
slow-mo when it happens.
Like a meter up in the air and starting to lose control. It's like, oh no, this isn't going to end well.
Yeah, 100%. But okay, a question. You're the GPS guy. What do you look at on a session? Like, obviously, I am not the accurate guy. I look at the max speed because it's the biggest number on the watch.
On my watches, I tend to have 2 watches, one on each wrist, because they often say different things, and I'm testing.
Okay.
But I'll have 2 seconds, 10 seconds, always showing.
Yes.
So that's what I look at the end of the run. The exception being like during Speed Week, where we're doing 500 meters, Weymouth Speed Week, this is, and I'll have it set up to show my 250, my 500. So literally, as I cross the finish line, when it doesn't matter anymore, take one eye out off the boom, glance,
Yeah.
see what my 2 speeds are. 500 is the first thing I'll look at, and then I'll look at my 250 to see whether it was like constant speed.
Yeah.
Do my jibe, sail back up the course and straight down again. And I don't even look at top speed. La Palme, I come back from France and people are like, what top speed you do? I'm like, I've no idea. I didn't even look.
So mad. I never even look at that fight. Well, the thing is, where we sail here, it's such a short run. It's like,
Yeah.
it's not really it's not a speed venue. You can't even put a speedboard on it because the run up is very gusty and whatever. But the actual bit where you get sort of speed, I would say it's a couple of 100 meters, if that.
Yeah,
like,
for sure. I looked at your track, and as soon as you're up to top speed, you've only got like 4 or 5 seconds before you're having to think about jibing or doing something rather than crashing to the rocks. So, ordinarily, I'm like, my main focus is my 5 by 10 seconds, my session average.
So let's just talk to him about that because it is interesting. I know that's like GPS speed surfing have kind of made that the standard because what they've kind of, I guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, what they've said is, look, most people are not going to have a 500 meter easy run.
Yeah.
But, what is the distance we can do, which is probably the most accurate. So it needs to be, 2 seconds is not going to be as accurate. 5 seconds starts to get accurate. And I guess 10 seconds has been the one that's been decided, which is the easiest to get more accurate. Would that be fair enough?
Yeah, the longer the time period, the longer the distance, the more accurate it tends to be. But also they're doing 5 runs. If you think about some runs, it's recording, it's a bit too high, some it's a bit too low. It kind of averages out.
Yeah.
And like
5 runs is,
good
I found 5 runs a difficult pill to swallow. I got to be honest.
Yeah.
I've not questioned it, but I always thought when that GPS speed surfing, sometimes like in the day, the wind's up for It can sometimes
Yeah.
be 20 minutes or whatever.
Yeah,
And
you get 4 runs. It's really frustrating. Yeah.
exactly. And almost 3 runs feels like, well, that's pretty solid. But
Yeah.
5, like even Luderitz when we were there, because you do these speeds and it usually sometimes on the bad days only peaks up for a couple of runs. Maybe
Yeah.
you're lucky if
Yeah.
it's busy,
Yeah.
you might get 2 of it, you might get 3. But to do
Yeah.
5
Yeah.
on an
No,
average day.
in a speed competition, in a classic speed competition, we'll have a number of heats in a day, and you take your best 2 runs during the heat.
Okay.
You take the average of those, and then you rank everyone for that heat. So it's
Okay.
like sailing. You get 0.7 for first place, 2 for second, 3 for third, etc.
Okay.
And then you just, over the course of the event, you've got a number of these heats or races, however you want to refer to them. And you just treat it as a sailing series. And then you have some discards, potentially, depending how many you did. And that's how we found our winner. And then if you're tied on points, then you start looking at people's best run, basically, during the whole
So hang on. So you basically start it like you would start a wave heat. You have a bit of a countdown and you go, right, or whatever it is. You say, we start at 10 o'clock and then we finish the end of the session at 11 o'clock.
Yeah,
and you can do as many runs between two points or GPS. It doesn't matter, I guess. You can just.
So actually, the beach, so if you take La Palma for an example, so that uses the classic format. So we've got start gate, we've got an end gate, we've got buoys marking the start and end of the course.
Okay.
There's a bit of a kind of gentleman's thing. You don't kind of sail at the same time as people because you get in each other's way, dirty wind and wake and whatnot.
Okay.
But you take your run up, you go down the course, you stop, and that has video cameras on the beach, so they can be used, especially if you're trying for records during June. He has record attempts for national records, world records for the mile. But for the competition in April, we actually use GPS and uses those same coordinates. So if you imagine this like rectangular course area, the GPS software works out after the event. So I kind of do all this on their behalf. Works out what your speed was through the course area. So that's how it's done. It's a lot more practical because you put your GPS on at the start of the day, you hand them in at the end of the day. I then pull off all the data, run it through the software, produce all the results. And it will produce a result which is very, very close to video timing, like within a tenth of a knot or something. But it's a lot more practical because the video is very manual. You have to have someone that basically is lining up the start photo with the finished photo and the times.
Yes.
And if you imagine doing that for 50 people who've been doing, let's say, 15 runs, there's a lot of work to go through. So we don't use that generally because it's just impractical.
Okay. So do you think that will become a more common thing? So, obviously setting an area, GPS style, and then that's still the 500 meter, is it?
Yeah, so that's 500 meter course. To be precise, it's 501 meters to kind of ensure you've definitely done at least 500. But Speed Week, we use a similar principle, but it's a bit more relaxed. It's we essentially have a start line. You cross the start line and you sail whatever angle you want of your own choosing. So you might go broader than someone else, or we've got kites, we've got wings, we've got windsurfers, we've got boats. They all sail at different angles. And so we measure your 500 based on the angle you chose to sail at. So that's like somewhere in between GPS speed surfing, where you just take your 500 meter wherever you happen to be, Prince of Speed, where you have to do it between the start gate and finish gate following the beach. So there's all these different formats basically.
And what do you think of 500 meters? Because I've got a few thoughts on it. Obviously, I'm definitely not young, but I'm new to the
it's a long way.
That's what I felt. It feels too far.
I don't do it on a daily basis. So I'm normally out trying to do something with my GPS. For the most part, I'm looking at 2 seconds, 10 seconds, and 250 meters.
10
500
seconds.
meters is a rare day. I don't normally go full speed for 500 meters.
Yeah, normally.
Because you need the space as well.
I was about to say, you need the space, you need the venue, you need lots of things. You need the gust to go all the way. This is the biggest problem, even in Luderitz. You can start off on a good run. Like, I'd actually love to see Luderitz ranked on 250 because there's bits of that and then
that'd be
taken
interesting.
from whichever bit of the course, because the bit
Yeah.
at the end is very fast and the bit at the beginning is very fast. And
Yeah.
Ludwig's typically is slow in
There's
the
a
middle.
hole in the middle.
So it's kind of like, I don't know. I feel like it should be updated, but I guess the 500 meters comes from the world speed water record, is it?
WSSRC, World Speed Sailing Record Council. So I think of all places, so I'm sitting here, I'm Weymouth, Portland Harbour's right to my right. I can look out and see the windsurfing going on, if it was. But it's like, it's 4 degrees and no one's out there. Don't know why. There's no wind either. Not really. But it all started here in 1972. There was a competition, and that's what spawned the WSSRC. Weymouth Speed Week's been going ever since. So we've been going for like 53 years.
That must be the oldest competition, is it?
It must be, yeah, for sure. A windsurfing speed competition as well. Started off before windsurfing existed. Yeah. But all the big milestones were broken in the early days. So like the 30 knot barrier was broken here, over 500 meters. I forget which of the guys did that.
Is it Fred Hayward, 30 knots?
I think it might have been, yeah.
I seem to remember.
Subsequently, faster venues have been found, but it's still going. And we had 100 people or so doing Weymouth Speed Week this year.
That's great. We
opened the entry and we were full in 9 hours. Like all the entries are gone that we opened up initially. We had a few in hand. Cool. And those filled. But it's really good to see. There's like loads of enthusiasm.
Well, I mean, the good thing is, like going back to the GPS thing, you could pretty much do a GPS comp anywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like it's actually interesting that to have like almost like a because obviously you need someone like you to be the guy that does it. So
there was other unofficial ways you could do it. You could, for example, you could do it through WaterSpeed, or you could all post to GPS Speed Surfing. Yeah, that's one thing which I didn't mention when we're talking about watches is how you set it up also matters. You can't just take it out of the box, put it on your wrist and go sailing.
Oh.
Sadly,
that's what I did. Maybe I need to check my watch.
I think you've possibly changed it. So the most important thing on Garmin is you have to tell it to record every second, because by default it doesn't. Maybe I haven't done that.
Maybe I need to check that. How do I do that?
So it's in the settings, there's a recording interval, and it's either on a thing called Smart, which basically stems back. That goes all the way back to early Garmin devices when they had limited memory. You could record like 2,000 points. So if you imagine like recording every second, that would be like 40 minutes. But that's useless if you're going for a hike or something. So they got this smart recording, and basically when something significant changes, like change direction or you've covered a prescribed distance, it records that point. When you're looking at your speed, it changes quite a lot. 1 second to the next, you're accelerating maybe 2 knots per second or something like that. You kind of need that detail of every second. So that's the one thing you absolutely have to change on your Garmin when you start using it. And then, and the other thing is using the app. So AP Pro will do all the settings for you. If you're using something like that GPS Team Challenge data field, then you need to use a mode which records Doppler speeds. Again, I've written about this, so you can put a link to my.
I think what I will do is I will have to make a video, but with, you know, like not like a podcast video, almost like a to the point. Okay, so you've got your new Garmin, you know.
Yeah, get out of the box. What do you do?
You probably should have bought this, right? What do you do? What do you? Because I think it is interesting, but it is hard to find it straight on. So I will, like I said, I'll put some of Mike's links below because they're super interesting. They're obviously out there. Maybe some of you've got some others. Feel free to suggest them in the comments. But it is interesting, but it's a bit of a minefield. If you don't know, if you're not really into any of these communities, or you've got no one to ask, and you're coming into it cold, it is a bit of a mind. Like,
sure, it is a minefield. Yeah. I don't know. Are there any questions or anything that have been appearing in the chat?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. So if you have got any questions, you might have already wrote it, but feel free to write them again. But we can go through a few. If you can see any on there, can you access the comments, Mike? I don't know if you can.
Yeah, I'll just open it now. I'm going to have to put glasses on. I'm sorry, I'm at that age where.
No, tell me about it. I've literally just got to that age. I'm like, but I could do it. O'Sheen is on there, actually.
Hey there.
Just interesting to see. Says, O'Sheen said, I did 500 meters, 50.05.
Oh, so close. Yeah, I'd
But
say, yeah, we clearly did 500 meters, 50 knots. It's
but,
just
but that,
unfortunate it didn't line up with the gates.
but it is interesting. So for people who don't know, obviously Luderitz's, which obviously everyone's at the moment for the world record, there's timing gates. But obviously, before the gate and slightly after the gate, it's still 500 meters. But the official timing is actually at the gate. So it's happened a few times where if the gate had been a meter further away or 2 meters, whatever it might be further down the course, even though it's closer to the exit, some people pick up speed and then carry speed afterwards.
Yeah, so the run up on, if you run, let's use La Palma as an example again, but it's the same at Speedway. Your run up is probably about 300 meters. So you can be fully lit like 100 meters before the start line. And then you go down the course and you start running out of wind. And the most common query I'll get when someone says, well, my GPS said I did this speed, but my official result's this speed, it will be that they started 100 meters, even 200 meters before the start gate. They were full speed. Or the other way around. They only really got to full speed partway down the course, and then they went past the finish line, another 100 meters, still doing full speed. With 9 times out of 10, any kind of query, it's always that.
But that's the good thing with GPS. With GPS, that gets rid of it unless you've got, like you say, in La Palma, where there's an actual fixed course.
Yeah, because I know that Principe is very much of the opinion that it needs to be a fixed course. Everyone's in the same place doing the best they can, which that's a very valid.
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
It's not right or wrong. Yeah.
No, if you've got a competition and that's the rules of the competition, there we go.
And like I say, Speed Week's a bit more informal. You cross the start line, you sail whatever angle you want, and then GPS speed surfing, you just do it wherever you happen to get a lucky gust. You just bear off and go with it.
Yeah. Another question here, which will get asked a few times, about alpha. So people who don't know what an alpha is, because I remember that with this watch, this 60, and I would see this thing on alpha. What the hell's a friggin' alpha?
Yeah, I think the name comes from, if you imagine the Greek logo symbol for an alpha, it's like that thing on its side.
Oh, okay.
But essentially, it is trying to measure your speed and a jibe all encompassed in one. And it's got a technical description of what it is, which I might describe in a second. But effectively, you sail along in a straight line, you do a jibe, and you sail back to where you started as fast as you possibly can. And it can be up to 500 meters, and the software works out where your best one was. Technically, you need to sail back to within 50 meters of where you started. Software figures it out for you. So the ideal would be beam reach, jibe, fairly tight jibe, and then beam reach back the other direction. You don't want to be crossing your original path. You don't want to be going too wide. So it's a fun thing to do, but it's really hard to kind of get right, because you can easily miss the 50 meters if you will.
I was about to say, I have a question about this, because on the Water Speed app, let me just check what it says. There's a thing they've got, which, again, I've been asking for this, which I think at some point may happen. So it says, alpha speeds. Oh, that's new. Okay. Oh, they've got alpha speeds on there. Okay. It says best jibe speed. And I was thinking, when you look at that, the problem is I found with the alpha is, like you say, you've got to come back to 50 meters of where you started the run, which if you do a crazy good jibe and you want to accelerate, it's not ideal to have to come back.
No, I'm just reading some of my comments while you talk. Yeah.
So why is that? Like, why can't it be a wider jibe? Like, what I would want to do, so for me, again, I've been speaking to Water Speed about this. I want the app to be able to give me much more interesting data for my jibe, because I think this is really beneficial for your average windsurfer. Maybe they're not into speed or whatever, but I think they want to go out and go, right, I want to practice jibes, and they want to get their percentage of jibe up. They want to get there. And is there a good way to do that? Because the alpha one feels just hard. I feel like there could be a better version of it.
For sure, there are different ways of measuring jibe. So there's a number of bits of software we've used over the years in the speed sailing world. which have measured jibe performance. And I used to look at that for years and years, kind of rating my jibes, going, oh yeah, that's the best jibe I've ever done. Effectively, the measure I used was what speed I stayed above. So like to maintain a speed, never drop beneath 15 knots, for example. Takes quite a jibe.
Yeah, so if you go to that, I was saying to them, it's like, if I come in at 30 knots and how long does it take me? Like, let's say that's my speed coming in. And then you must have to take a percentage off, and then how fast it takes you to get back up to that speed.
Yeah.
But why does it need to be so like tight? Why can't you do a wide jibe?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason it should be tight.
There's no reason.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Yeah. So some of my best jibes aren't even alphas, to be honest, because you've effectively done like this really wide jibe. You've come out on a broad reach, trying to keep as much speed as you can, and that doesn't qualify it for an alpha. So like PWA races, they wouldn't get any alphas at all. Yeah,
but that was the problem I had. I'd done some I thought epic jibes, and I'm thinking, oh, this is gonna be a good alpha. Don't even register. Doesn't even.
You didn't get back to the 50 meters, so it's a very specific thing. Lots of people, it's one of their main focus. There were years and years that I did try to improve mine as well, but yeah, simple jibe performance is something different.
Okay, but that can be done, like that, because
you can,
I feel like this would be such a friggin' cool thing to have in the water speed app, which they've got. But I think after testing it out a bit, I think we would need to just little play around with the how it marks it. So, what's your idea? How would you like?
If you can find the apex, the true apex of a jibe, then you could take a period of time before and after it, and you could take your average speed over that, for example. So what matters to me is that you're coming out fast. That's, for me, what kind of qualifies as a good jibe. If you don't get that calculation right, there's a danger you're not going to be comparing apples and apples. You're going to be comparing the entry speed of one jibe to the exit speed of another if you can't work out where the apex is properly. Like I say, it's a problem that's been solved before. There's other applications that already do it. So maybe the water speed guys would want to talk to them, or just look what those have done, basically.
Because it is interesting, like you say, it's got to be percentage wise compared to your entry speed.
The min speed is pretty useful. So for me, I looked at all the other things, percentages, because you can artificially boost the percentage score. So if you measure your exit speed to your entry speed, you can fudge it. You can go in deliberately slowly. You're undercooking it, and then you and then come out really fast.
But that's still a frigging good jibe.
It's still a good jibe, but it's maybe a bit artificial. It's not like what.
Not in terms of a competition, because I was thinking this. If you're trying to improve people or judge their jibes, I'm kind of thinking as almost gamified fun, like where you're basically trying to get a score, like it gives you like a smiley face or something, you're the master of jibing or whatever, like that kind of thing. But in terms of a competition, I guess it's different.
But there's a number of things, and they all have their place. So there's a lot of things can be done there.
Interesting. I was just Matt saying the same thing with the fast tack as well. What about, because it's also interesting. I mean, because if you could score your tacks and your jibes, I feel like that's such a cool thing for windsurfing. It's one of the things, like if you looked at the magazines back in the day, there's like a 10-page carb jibing tacking every episode, and look at all the videos online with the most views. It's a massive thing. So for coaching and for getting people to work on this, like you say, GPS is not just for speed and distance.
Sure.
There's a whole lot of other stuff.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that. So I've obviously been in speed for years and years. My girlfriend was wearing her GPS, the same thing, one of these things actually, back in the day, now a watch, purely to look at how good her jibes were. And actually, you can see that visually. That can be as simple as looking at whether it's a nice round curve, whether you're going like this, or whether when you're learning to jibe, it goes round, stops, and then comes back, and you got this big angle because you've stopped and then you've sailed back. And the more rounded it got, that was a measure of how the jibes were improving. And also looking at the minimum speed we were using as an absolute measure. Was that planing or not? Because that's like all a bit arbitrary. Oh yeah, I've done a planing jibe. We've all got our friends that were like doing 2 knot planing jibes or whatever. But yeah, looking at the GPS really helped. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely delve into that more, because I do think it's something that needs a bit more explanation. Like, I think it could be a lot of use for a lot of people. Like, speed and distance, obviously good, but I think the turning capabilities of a GPS could be good. Any more comments you see?
I don't know. I see some kind of what's that icon that Adrian posted at 10:30?
That's good.
Mike.
Yeah, can you click on it from your end? You probably can't, can you? Maybe
No, it's a bit too small for me to tell.
I have no clue.
So where we got?
I mean, let us know in the comments if you've got any questions. Now is your time to ask them, because we are actually looking at the comments right now. So if you've already posted, you can just repost it. It makes it easier, because there are quite a few to go through. But I think, I mean, super useful. If you have got GPSs, let us know what you're using, how you're finding it. Because again, we know that some of the cheap ones do work, they serve a purpose, but they are prone to spikes and not as accurate data. But again, depending on what you're doing.
Well, there's the whole Garmin thing as well from Marty Gerard as weather. Strava and Garmin speeds as well.
Okay, so
that's worth mentioning, because Strava's super popular.
So the question is, so why is there a difference between your recorded Garmin speed and Strava?
Yeah, so early on, for everyone that was here and still here, we've been on quite a long time. So yeah, I was talking about how we calculate speed. It's actually based on observable Doppler shifts, changing frequency of the signal. It's nothing to do with where you are or how quickly you traveled a particular distance. Now, Garmin do record that data. Strava don't use the speed that is calculated by the device. They just use positional data and calculate it afresh. So that will be prone to errors, especially if your position jumps significantly. So an example, I can be sailing in the middle of a lake, you crash. If you look at your track, I've certainly had tracks where I've suddenly been in a field adjacent to the lake, and then the GPS realizes where it really is, and it brings you back into the lake. And those kind of things ultimately turn into spikes on Strava and anything that's using the positional data alone. So Strava's all well and good.
Is there like I don't know, AI is the buzzword, but is there some sort of software which can kind of detect those and just... No.
So yes and no. It's actually it's quite nuanced. So some things are really obvious. Some things are a bit more difficult to identify, but the big ones certainly are relatively easy to detect and filter out. But yeah, that's what Strava's doing. That's if Strava tells you you've done 50 knots or whatever in your local lake, it's almost certainly because it's just got the position wrong, basically.
Yeah. Matt says, any further discussion on making your own?
Making your own, as in terms of ESP, maybe. So there is this ESP project. So basically, the instructions are online. If you look on Seabreeze, there is a forum for speed sailing, and there's a topic. I'm trying to think what it's called. It's something along the lines of another DIY GPS. I'm just going to open Seabreeze and remind myself what it's called.
Yeah.
Or take you to a link where it's got, so here it is, another DIY GPS logger approach. So that project kicked off a few years ago. You can find the instructions, you order the parts online, costs about 50 quid or so. The challenge that people tend to have is making a waterproof enclosure for it. You need to be pretty technical to do it as well, technically minded, software and hardware, but it's not super complicated. So a lot of people have done that. It's quite a good way to go. Or I'm kind of waiting to see how they get on with the lease device personally.
Yeah, that looks interesting. I mean, it looks very similar to the motion type thing. Is it?
Yeah, it's actually an offshoot of the ESP as well. So he used what was learned from the ESP and similar components, basically change the software somewhat for the leaser itself. Yeah, I've seen them on the arms of Simon and Jenna. They look like they're going to be a good device. Yeah.
Okay. What's this? Says a median filter. I guess that's what I was saying before. But
There
again,
must be some kind of response to one of the other questions.
maybe what I was saying about the is there something that can take out the spikes? But again, then you don't get all the little bits which make a difference as well. Windy Dave says, I've been using the water speed app on the Apple Watch. I'm not good at jibes, just learning. Interesting, Apple Watch. We didn't talk about that. What's your take on the Apple Watches? Because I mean, I had one of the earlier ones and it was horrible. The thing run out of battery in seconds and I wasn't really that into it. But then I've seen the newer ones, are they Ultra or something like this? I've seen Nico Preen using that and a few of the other guys.
Apple, they've effectively got three kind of different models, stroke price points, whatever. They've got this SE, which is an entry level thing. They've got the Apple Watch, which is currently Apple Watch 11, Series 11, and the Apple Watch Ultra, which is now Apple Watch Ultra 3. So I know that the Ultra 2 and the Series 10 definitely produce pretty good GPS data if you can get it recorded by a suitable app. They're good for people who are in the Apple ecosystem. I got an iPhone, for example. You have to have an iPhone, actually. So
yeah,
I can't recommend it to everyone because you don't want to buy an iPhone just so you can get a new watch necessarily. But they need a lot of charging. So like standard Apple Watch 11, you need to charge it every day, I think.
That was the one
like
I had.
2 days or so, because it's basically a miniature phone in your wrist.
Yeah.
So the difference is the Apple Watches are basically a miniature phone on your wrist. And the Garmin watches are watches which happen to do some sporty stuff.
Okay.
If you see what I mean.
Yeah, that was the biggest problem I had. I obviously had one of the early ones, so I'm sure the newer ones have got a longer battery. But that new one, I just found myself looking at it and it was always off because I'm quite lazy. And then I got the Coros after that one, and it was just like a revelation. I was like, this thing I didn't need to. It was just crazy. And then I got the Garmin after the Coros, and this has been amazing as well, to be honest. I mean,
the battery life of Coros is a little bit better than Garmin, but the Garmin's taking your heart rate 24 hours a day, basically, and the Coros doesn't do that, so it's not burning as much battery.
No, I have to say the Garmin I've been super happy with. It's been
I think the one other thing I'll say on Apple is like I have been looking at the Apple performance, like Series 5 and 6 were pretty dodgy, to be honest. 10 and the Ultra 2 were really good. I'd expect the same of the new ones, to be honest. Where in the middle they went from pretty terrible performance to good performance in terms of accuracy, I don't know. I haven't got the data to say.
Yeah. What do we say? Mine is 4th edition. The battery lasts about 1.5 hours on the water. That's the thing. You can get them cheap, but they. What the problem is again, some people are very. I mean, if you could see my office here, I won't show you, but there's mess everywhere. I'm not that organized with certain things, and charging watches is not. I'm not like some people go to bed at night, they put it on, and I've no clue, no chances. That's if
just want to mention our Surfer app as well. It's worth mentioning there are a number of apps you can play with, and you don't necessarily just need to use one because, like you say, use AP Pro on the water, but then you can hook it up to GPS speed surfing, water speed. There's a lot of people like Hulan, which is like. It's got other aspects that aren't in water speed, link it to Strava, and all these different things. You don't have to choose just one. Just link it to all of them and see what's interesting.
Basically. And the Surfer app, actually, the guy who used to work for Super, I met him when he was doing the PWA. He's now working for Water Speed. But that app is the you can do the jumping on it. Is that right?
Yeah. Hulan's got the jumping as well.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I'll tell you. If it depends where you live.
I mean. There's some windsurfers that would be useful for. Certainly winging and jumping kind of go hand in hand. But that's another cool aspect to look at.
The only problem is Adrian saying, Artin, do you think the heights are accurate? And this was this was a difficult because I think it uses the acceleration.
It does
to judge something. And then when we were in Pozo, I kind of realized that a certain type of jump seemed to register better than
right.
I don't know. I don't know how that would work, but it is interesting. It's pretty good. I mean, there's not much in it as a kind of fun thing to do.
In principle, it should be pretty sound. I think there is a lot of variability because I've spoken with the guy who is behind Hulan as well, and there's a lot of variability even between like different Garmins of the same era for the accelerometers inside them.
Okay.
So I think it's going to be the same can of worms as GPS, basically, that they're not all created equal.
Yeah, I think you've got to take it with a bit of, within reason. Your life doesn't depend on this,
No,
but it is fun. Without it, once you're used to it, going out without it and then doing some runs, you're like, shit. Like it's a whole different feeling. And I know there will be always people who go, oh yeah, just relax, have fun, don't worry about it, enjoy yourself. You're like, yeah, but I enjoy having these little benchmarks, these little mini sort of competition, and just being able to compare stuff. Like I enjoy that side of it.
But also it's a good measure when you're taking up something new, like when I got into foiling, because I was already a speed sailor. It's like a direct measure of how you're doing foiling is what kind of speed are you doing that you're feeling comfortable at, or that you're just simply terrifying yourself because you're going way too fast for your skill level. But it's something else to do.
And the one thing you notice about when you got a GPS, which is not always apparent, is sometimes when you think you are absolutely flying, you're going 50 knots, you think like you've just broke the world speed record, and then there's other times where it just feels like a walk in the park because it's so flat, and you look at the speed.
You have to be in control to go fast, whether you're on a fin or whether you're on a foil. If you're not in control, if you're on the edge of control, if you're beyond the edge of control, then you're not going to be going fast. You're holding back.
I found the chop was the biggest eye opener. When I first started speed sailing years ago, I made a video in West Kirby, but there was a choppy day, and it was one of the. I was absolutely killer. I thought it was the fastest run, and comparing that to one of the other runs, which I thought I was just cruising, and the flatter, more cruisy run where I really was hardly breaking a sweat, was faster than the one where I nearly died.
I think it's really windy runs when it's really broad. It's really choppy when you're finishing, and we've got like 21 centimeter fin or so, and the chop might be like a foot high or something, and your fin basically isn't in the water for a lot of the time. I don't think people necessarily realize it's not always super smooth when you're speed sailing. You can be really hectic. Slowing down is the hardest.
When it is smooth, that's the fast
when
one.
you really go quick.
And they just don't feel fast. What
weight classes? I'm all for that.
GPS weight classes. Now you got me started, because I have been banging on about weight classes. And how heavy are you, Mike? Just for example.
So currently, I think I'm probably 76, 77. But I was speed sailing for a lot of years at 70 kilos, which is super light.
But which is totally fine. And I keep banging on about it because I genuinely think we need to be promoting and marketing speed and racing in different weight classes. And I know I keep saying it, but boxing, you don't see heavyweights going against lightweights. They're just totally different.
And or rowing or weightlifting or whatever.
Like I'm down to like 78 kilos at the moment. And me looking at Luderitz and looking at Antoine Albo and stuff, it's interesting. But me personally, I'm not taking anything from it. And it's the same when I watch the PWA racing. I want one day there to be an under 80 kilo category. I think it's a valuable thing to have, because you get the youth in there as well.
Kids an opportunity, like the youth age group, before they're fully grown.
Totally. And they're
performing at high level.
You could see they've got the skills, and people say it's an age thing, but it's not. It's a weight.
No, I don't think it is. No.
And they need that opportunity, because there's a big jump. Like, I think if you're just over 80, you can get yourself down. If you're 85, you can get yourself up to 9. You can get yourself. But when you're like you were 70, you're only going to get yourself to near 80. You're not going to get close. So it's never going to be easy to pick a weight. But I know when I grew up racing, I was racing in a lightweight category, which used to be longboard racing, and I think the weight category then was 80 and below, or 80 and above. Maybe there was a bit of a crossover, but it was around about that thing, and it worked super well. I just
saw Adrian's comment for you to put on weight.
Better hit the KFC. I know. I'm going lighter this year. I've got. I was a bit overweight. I was like 83 at some point, which was quite fast. Like, you notice the difference. People who have never put on weight, or haven't got any reference to maybe their body weight's super. The difference of 5 kilos is massive. Like,
well, you also notice it. Yeah, it is a big difference, but you notice it when you put a weight jacket on as well. So speed sailors wear lead. Some guys like 15 kilos upwards in Ludwig's maybe. I tend to, if I'm at West Kirby, wear like 8, 9, 10 kilos of lead. If it's a good day, maybe 6 or 7 on a lighter day. It makes a big difference.
Huge. I put on 9. I did most of Ludwig's with no weight, and then on the day when I went over 50, even though it was it wasn't over 10 seconds, these speed sailing people, but still I put 9 kilos on, and the difference, like, you accelerate, and when you get that gust, instead of getting pulled up and you moving, you feel the sail just
the kit accelerates, the kit does work,
and it
also makes a difference in the lulls. You go through the holes better because you have more momentum.
This is what freaks me out. That we did that at Ludwig's, and I honestly couldn't get my head around it. I know it makes total sense. If you drop a stone that's heavier or it roll, it's going to have momentum. But in windsurfing, my brain couldn't handle it. I was like, but if I'm lighter and it drops, surely I stay going. And it does work like that, but not at the top end of it, does it? Because
no. So I first noticed this was really a thing when I did Weymouth Speedway for the very first time, because I'd spent quite some time GPS speed sailing on a lake in the middle of England. So it was the first time I'd ever worn a weight jacket and having to jibe, because West Kirby, I put a weight jacket on, you stop, you get off, you walk back. And then you jibe, it's like, hang on, I've never carried this much speed through a jibe before in my life, because you just keep going like a train.
But it's
you
so
can feel
weird.
The difference.
It doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
If you're lighter, you think, oh, I'm going to go through the jibe and carry more speed because I'm lighter. I'm not as heavy.
Buoyant, but you haven't got the momentum. Yeah.
It's mad. Like, it still freaks me out because it's obvious, it's physics. I get it, but it somehow doesn't compute in my brain. And it wasn't until I was in Ludwig's where we're explaining it all, like the big guys actually, where they gain their biggest advantage is through the hole, because they carry that momentum through. And it was interesting when you look at the GPS tracks from Ludwig's, the acceleration from the lighter guys is the best bit. You like, that's your small moment, which is why I like shorter GPS stuff, because I get the acceleration effect. But then over distance, the big guys just have this solid line.
You see it in slalom as well, like on a fin in light winds. We don't see so much light wind slalom now on 9 meter sails or whatever. But if you've ever raced people, you'll find the big guys keep their speed going. If they can get going, they're really hard to keep up with. Really hard to keep up with.
Which is why I'm always fighting to say, look, if it sort of goes super low, carry on the race, because that's what gives the lighter guys the opportunity, because it's actually getting going and acceleration. But if it just gets light,
the light guys there,
the big guys still have the advantage. Mr. Paul Van Bellen, all about nutrition. I'm all over it now. I'm trying to get healthy. I'm getting to that age where
there's a question about weight jackets and buoyancy from Adrian a bit further down. So what we got here, Peter Boy.
Well, I haven't quite read it. Martin says, Adrian, Pizza Boy. Now I know when someone told me. Yeah, exactly. There you go. It's fast. I'm sure that's the way we go. Yeah. Well, okay. Oh, yeah. Question. With a weight jacket, is there flotation too? Because getting knocked off would be less than ideal. Obviously, I think there's rules. In competition, there's rules. Out of competition, not so many rules. But in competition, your weight jacket has to float. So you have to have enough buoyancy. It has to not sink, basically, because obviously if you have a big crash, you don't want to be sinking. And it's the same with Ludwig's.
It gives you a bit of buoyancy, but we have a load of foam in them. And if you're in Ludwig's, you're only in 12 inches of water as well. So there, it's not such a concern for those guys. West Kirby, you can stand up everywhere. Other places I have to think about, is it going to float?
Not if you're knocked out.
Yeah, and that as well. Yeah, hopefully not.
What's your take on
out.
helmets? What's your take on helmets?
I generally wear one because West Kirby sailing next to a big wall, so it has crossed my mind what would happen if my harness line snapped, for example. You don't want to smack your head at 45 knots on a brick wall.
Very true.
Once in a while, you get hit on the head, some random thing, the mast smacks you on the head while you're in the water, some weird gusts. I know there are views where if you crash, if you land awkwardly, you can catch water with your helmet, and that actually puts more strain on your neck than you would get if you didn't have a helmet.
Yeah, that's the elbow.
Maybe it's like seatbelts. There are occasions where a seatbelt can cause an injury, but maybe on balance, seatbelt is a good thing. So I don't know. I'll wear one in extreme conditions.
Waist harness versus seat harness.
Spent years and years wearing a waist harness, but now I'm using a Liberty harness, which allows you to kind of just sit down a bit more, especially when foiling. I like it for foiling.
Yeah.
I think it's good to be able to sit down a little bit when you're speed sailing. Slalom maybe waist harness because you got the maneuverability, flexibility. Yeah,
that's what the PWA boys say. They say definitely that Liberty harness for foiling, 100%, and then it's mixed with the fin stuff.
I don't wear an actual seat. I haven't worn a seat for like 20 years or so since I got properly into windsurfing.
Yeah, I did. I actually went to make a video. I did one. It was a long time ago now, though. And what I found is, as soon as I put the seat on, because I'm quite light, I kept getting picked up.
Yeah, that was my experience.
Yeah, with the waist, I could kind of manage it somehow much easier.
Yeah, especially in strong winds. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was interesting. All right. Well, I think we have come to the end of our chat. I've learned something anyway, especially the first bit. I know it's a big subject. There's lots to talk about, but we might do it again, or I might try and make a more precise video with certain things we've touched on in this podcast, because there's definitely, like I said, new people in. You do need almost like this running order of things. Okay, so you want to get into GPS. Okay, what do? You buy a watch. That's the first thing. What are the options? What should I look at? When you get the watch, okay, what do? You go through the settings. You need to do this. Okay, what apps? What can I do? What can I look for? Like it kind of needs this GPS running order. So I will plan to do something like that. Massive thanks to Mike, the GPS guy. Who is definitely the GPS guy. This is my go-to. He knows when he gets a message from me, he's going to get bombarded with questions. So massive thanks for coming on and sharing some knowledge.
No worries.
Definitely far too complicated for me.
Pleasure.
All right, Mike. Stay tuned. If anyone wants to get hold of you.
Yeah.
It's like, no worries.
What's the speed chat group? Because then it's just public questions and answers.
Yeah, if you're not on the WhatsApp group for the Water Speed Challenge or the Windsurfing TV WhatsApp group, you could join that. Again, you don't join the groups that you don't want to hear from, because if you just join the announcement group, there's not that many posts. You won't get annoyed by lots of comments. But if you join one of the groups, obviously some of them are quite active, so just be mindful of that. But it can be pretty fun. We're going to be doing some more GPS speed challenges. Water Speed app have got a PWA challenge on at the moment, which was pretty interesting to see. Oisin van Gelder, last time I looked, in Ireland, was leading that challenge, like 45, 46 knots, which is pretty crazy. Pettifer, I think, was up there from Luderitz. That might have changed yesterday. I haven't checked, but I'll be doing a rundown of that. And that's it. Cheers, Mikey.
Yes,
Bit of it, man. All right, let me work out how to end this. I haven't got my man here this time.